So today, we're actually going to talk about Batista making his full-time return to WWE. If you guys haven't heard, this is actually really big news because Batista has been talking about this for a very long time. Now the idea is Batista wants to come to WWE and have one final run. Whether it's for the title, hasn't really been specified, but he is clamoring for a very big match in the WWE, and guess what? He wants to do house shows too. So this is actually really unique considering that Batista is a very popular movie star as well as a world champion in WWE. So obviously in this situation, we are all for the idea of Batista coming back. Now some of these reports that have come out with Batista wanting to return to WWE really stem from the fact that he wants to do everything. He wants to do house shows, pay-per-views, and basically have one final goodbye send-off run for about 6 months to 12 months. Now obviously, for those who didn't know, I'm going to my very first WrestleMania in New Orleans for WrestleMania 34, which is really awesome if Batista could come back just in time for that. Now the idea of Batista coming back opens up endless opportunities with different matchups. One of my favorite matchups that I would really like to see in this situation would actually be Batista versus Braun Strowman. And the reason for that is because Braun Strowman has been made to look like a monster. He has been so significant in WWE these last few years. And when you look at Braun Strowman right now, the only guy that has really presented a challenge for him has been Roman Reigns. Now obviously the idea of Batista and Braun Strowman going back and forth can be really unique. However, Batista has said in multiple reports that he is going to really fight for a match against Hunter, which is something that he's really clamoring for. Now I do think a match between Triple H and Batista would be really cool. However, WWE's creative direction looks to be more so going towards the idea of Triple H versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 34. Now, me going to WrestleMania 34, I do think the idea of Triple H and Kurt Angle would be a lot better than Triple H versus Batista. However, Triple H versus Batista at maybe SummerSlam would be really cool and unique as well. I would love to know if Batista in this situation would be a heel or a babyface. However, we haven't really been able to know because nothing is official just yet. But obviously, the idea of Batista coming to WWE in a full-time role can be really cool in this day and age. Again, we talked about the idea of him going up against Braun Strowman, but what about other guys on the WWE roster? Who do you guys want to see feud with Batista? Now, I'll tell you, for one, I would love the idea for Batista and John Cena to go at it, Batista and Samoa Joe, and yes, I'm just going to go there, guys. I think the idea of AJ Styles versus Batista on paper may not seem like a big match, but definitely could be a big match with those two guys in the ring. Now, the idea that Batista would come into WWE in a full-time role really brings up a huge question mark in this situation. Would Batista be competing for the Universal or WWE Championship belt? Now, just like Goldberg, I know a lot of people don't like the idea of part-time wrestlers getting a belt and just not really doing much with it. Now, Batista wants to be there full-time, so he wants to be on the road doing the house shows, he wants to do the pay-per-views, he wants to do the taped events. So I say give it to him. I say give him a short little run. The idea of putting Batista in the ring with somebody else, having Batista win the belt, and then of course dropping the belt at some point is totally okay with me. Now, if Batista were to win the belt and then not drop the belt, and then of course successfully retain maybe 3-4 matches a year without competing on TV whatsoever, kind of doing like what Brock Lesnar and Goldberg did, then I'm all against the idea of Batista coming back. Now, we talked a little bit about the WWE Championship situation on previous episodes of The Slam. Nobody really knows what's going to happen here. Obviously, with Elimination Chamber and Royal Rumble, the main event scene for WrestleMania for these title belts are really up in the air. So the idea that maybe AJ Styles could go into WrestleMania competing against Shinsuke Nakamura for the belt would be really unique. Now, what about the idea of Batista versus Shinsuke Nakamura, right? Maybe Shinsuke could win the big one at WrestleMania and eventually compete and defend the belt against Batista. Now, I know what you're thinking. If Batista were to beat Shinsuke Nakamura, you're probably mad. But if it resulted in like a really big feud and a really big series of matches in which maybe Shinsuke Nakamura would get the rub and eventually win the belt back, I think it could be a really unique creative process. So tell me what you guys think. Do you guys want to see Batista return to WWE? And what are some matchups that you guys want to see? For me personally, I think Braun versus Batista has money written all over it. Especially because Batista right now wouldn't be as protected as Brock Lesnar. So we all seen what happened with Braun and Brock. In this case, I think having Braun Strowman beat Batista definitely does no harm. And here's the good thing. Batista's a movie star, MMA fighter, an all-around badass. So the idea of Batista beating Braun Strowman is not a bad idea if Braun Strowman could eventually get the upper hand. Whether that's backstage brawls, whether that is maybe, you know, championship run, whatever the case may be, WWE has a really cool opportunity here. Now, for those who don't know, Batista's last run was pretty unsuccessful. And I think that had to just do with timing. When you look at WrestleMania 30, the whole Daniel Bryan authority thing, it just didn't look too good. It wasn't successful. It didn't work out the way that it should have. But the whole playing field has changed. Daniel Bryan is not wrestling. WWE's champions that you've seen, you know, these last few years have pretty much been part-time champions, in exception for AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura. Or I'm sorry, Jinder Mahal. I don't know why I said Shinsuke. But when you look at that right there, it just automatically makes you think that something so big can happen with a Batista return. Now, of course, there's been multiple reports about where Batista's movie career stands in this situation, which is completely okay. Any film offer that Batista would receive within his one-year run with WWE would have to approve. But it looks like Batista's relationship with Vince McMahon and the WWE is a very positive one. So I say, hey, you have a guy who is making great movies. You know, when you look at WWE's historically with their movie stars, The Rock, John Cena, Batista, as of right now, it just makes sense. WWE, use Batista to your advantage. That's all you have to do. Just use him to your advantage. Bring him back on a full-time role. Let him do movies. And use it as an opportunity to cross-promote your content. I think they missed that mark last time Batista came back. And I think it caused a lot of confusion as to where WWE stood with their relationship with Batista. Obviously, Batista's lined up for a couple more films. People are really excited to see what's going to come out of it. But now we get to the point of the waiting game, and we wait to see if Batista would return. Now, obviously, Royal Rumble is coming up, so if that is the case, then hopefully we get a surprise entrant of Batista making his return to the WWE. And here's the thing about Batista making his return to the WWE. We can't forget about it. Batista, in this situation, has built so much value on his brand that him being there full-time will allow for some really awesome creative storylines. That's right. Why do we hate when people come back? Because they only stick around for 2 or 3 matches. And that's if we're lucky. So if Batista does come back in a full-time role, I just think it makes sense here to go for it. You have so many opportunities here. Like I said, on paper, the idea of AJ versus Brock really wasn't that great. But it turned out to be a great match. So look at Batista versus AJ. I think we could probably get something a lot better. In fact, I think Batista's a way better in-ring competitor than Brock Lesnar. Where do we begin? You know, what is the moment that we know Batista will return to the ring? I love the idea of a Royal Rumble surprise entrant. He doesn't need to win. He could be in the Final Four. Shinsuke Nakamura could, you know, throw Batista over to win. It'd be a really unique surprise. There's so many different ways to fantasy book this. But let me know what you guys think. Episode 23 of The Slam has now concluded. If you guys want to join the discussion, you guys want to be part of the show, go ahead and check the link in the description. I've included a form for people to send in their own videos and all that good stuff. So if you guys want to be part of the show, you definitely could be part of the show. And what's going to be really cool is I got some more content on the way. I have some episodes coming with Nukes. I have some episodes coming with Tony and other special guests. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching today's episode of The Slam. And I will see you on the next one. Peace.